Earlier on in the house, we were talking about your time as a young girl. So let's start from 1950s. I believe by 1950 you are already now a very slightly older girl.
1950, I'm older. I'm in Gayaza High School. 1950, I was in. Oh, you know, at that time we used to have Junior 1 to Junior 3. You have a public exam. Then secondary 4 to 5, 6. You sit for O-level. 1950 was when I had just moved from the junior section to the senior section, and we were forming the top class. But of course, 1949 there had been another set of riots.
Yeah.
And again, I think that was economic, more economic than anything. But I have no personal experience of those riots, except that my father was then at Mitiana, and trouble was not as easy as it is today. Mitiana looked very far.
Yeah.
And when the riots took off, the headmistress did not allow anybody to take anybody's daughter. Yeah. You had to come for your daughter yourself. And we who didn't have parents near, although my aunt's husband wanted to take me, Miss Kobe said, I'm sorry, this time everybody is taking only their own. So we stayed in Gayaza and were being drilled what to do if the rioters came to the school. And they were told, if you hear any riot, run into the bush and hide. But the first sign of commotion, we all ran towards the gate.
So the 1953 crisis, do you remember anything? The Kabaka being exiled?
1953, I remember very clearly, because 1953 I was the first year at Makerere. I remember our warden, we were going into the dining room in the evening. The administration made sure that we were all in, then told us we had been gated. Nobody should get out of their hall of residence. We should stay there. Then we were told the Kabaka has been exiled. He's been a bad boy. What? So for us in Mary Stewart, we were very few. We were only 13. Were we? Yeah, we were only 13 at that time. 13 girls. Most of us were from Uganda. But around 8:30, the boys came around saying, "Bana ba Uganda, get out. We are going to have a meeting." So Bana ba Uganda, we got out. Who are these people inciting us? The Henry Barlow, Mayanja Nkanji, and the rest. They were senior people. They were above us. So we all walked into the arts theater, as we called it at that time, and had a meeting.
That's the arts, Faculty of Arts.
It's the Faculty of Arts.
Yes.
We had a meeting in the lower lecture theater,
Yeah,
and stayed there nearly all the night, passing resolutions, deciding what we shall do. One of the things, we are not going to stand up when they sing the British national anthem. We are not British anymore. Yeah, so the 53 crisis, I was quite aware.
Okay, so the Kabaka returns in 1955. But before the Kabaka returns, there was the Queen's visit.
The Queen's visit. The Queen visited Uganda. I was a second-year student at that time, 1954, when she opened the dam. She was supposed to plant a tree at Makerere University. But because of the boycott of Uganda, the Uganda government boycotted the Queen's visit. The governor feared to bring the Queen to Kampala because he didn't know what would happen. So for us who were students, and that's when the Arts Court became Queen's Court, because she was going to plant, I don't know whether those trees are still there, she was going to plant one of the trees and her husband the other. So people were chosen to go to Entebbe to receive the tree and meet the Queen. And stupidly, our warden told us we've got to wear grey dresses, to put on our red what. And I refused to buy a grey dress. I said I have no money to buy. And Miss Graham said, I'm sure you can find a plain dress in yours. And I said, well, I don't have one. Mm-hmm. So for me, I didn't go, because I was feeling my nationalistic feelings. I didn't go to meet the Queen.
So when the king returns from England, how old were you then? That
was real jubilation. What did we do? Baganda students had an organization, we called it Vanaba Buganda. But when he was returning, we decided we were not going to have lectures. And we told our principal, the Bansen, Vanaba Buganda are not going to attend lectures while we are jubilating for the Kabaka to come back. And he was very wise, because he said, no, just do what you like. No lectures if you don't want to come. But the lectures will go on. So the lectures went on for the rest of the people. For us, we decided to take our gowns and go and wait along the street where we would see him. I remember we lined up on Namirembe Road. And when it was a very, very slow process. After we had sighted him at Namirembe Road, near the mosque, we ran up to the cathedral. By the time he got to the cathedral, we were at the cathedral. We ran up to before we ran through Kabaka Njagala and saw him getting into the palace. And then every day we would follow him wherever the activities were, just to see him. And eventually, to mark everything finished, we organized a dance, Kabaka's return dance, and invited everybody, including the Europeans and what. But only one European, Brian Langlands, replied and said, when we play God Save the Queen, you rudely sit down. I'm not going to come to see your king. And when he wrote that letter, the students were very angry. They decided we are going to call him. We should try him. He was a lecturer, mind you, but we are determining we'll try him. And I think the principal thought it would be easier if he complied and came. So he came, and he was sitting in the lower lecture theatre, and people like Elisa Fanny Mawaju were so angry with him and very what, and they were shouting at him, telling him how can he be rude, what is he doing here, why doesn't he go back, after all we didn't call you the British, and so on. And poor man agreed. I think having been told by his principal that don't bring a riot here. So eventually he begged our pardon. And they said, okay, you go out. And it was at night. You go out and we'll think about it. Eventually, anyway, he was called in and we said, okay. But he still didn't come to the dance. And then I remember the Kabaka also invited us to a dance in the palace. I did not join any political party. I remember going with a group of sociology students. I was doing sociology, to attend a rally at the Tree of Freedom, where it was there, now the bus park. And for us, it looked stupid. I remember Musazi getting up on a platform and saying, "Babagamba nti akatale k'ensiko yonna kaagwa. Mwaliyo nga kagwa." And the crowd said, "No." But I wasn't a political activist in the sense that I joined any political movement at that time. But 1960 election, when Uganda boycotted the election, we had wanted direct election, first of all, for the Lukiiko, and we had demonstrated, walked up to Ulange, telling Michael Kintu we want direct elections now. And we remember waiting for him at the gate and throwing a lot of papers at him. And there was a lot of hula baloo, how could the students be that rude to the catechumen and so on. But I wasn't a member of any political party. But 1960, I voted. And I remember that year I produced the play which Rebecca Anjawa, Kenyan student, had written. And our play came number one. I had also come first in the debate. I think it was about girls' education and so on. And the governor had been an adjudicator. When, after the election, the governor notices there is no woman, so he tells the political leaders, "Bring me some names of women you know you would support, and I'll nominate one woman for the opposition and 2 women for the government." So in the opposition, there were people like Sam Odaka and others who had been at Makerere with me, who knew me. They suggested my name. But Dr. Obote, he wasn't doctor at that time, Mr. Obote told me, "I put your name at the bottom because I didn't know you." And then the governor called me and said, "If you put this girl's name on top, we shall nominate her." He was the leader of opposition. I was nominated on his side. He had never seen me. But I think it was because other people had seen me debate and they knew I was a political animal anyway. I did not join a political party until I was nominated on UPC side. Okay. And I joined the UPC.
So then, of course, the parliament opened and...
I was one of the people who entered that parliament for the first time because the parliament used to meet, Legiko it was called at that time, used to meet in town hall. And the day I joined, we were moving from the town hall into the new parliament. We lined up outside the town hall and marched up to the parliament. And then we swore in. There were 3 of us. What did it feel like? You know, it was really frightening, but not really frightening. I was used to being with a lot of men. Because when I joined Makerere, our year we were only 4 girls who joined. But after the second year, the other girls went into professions to do diploma. I was the only one who stayed on for degree work. So for the last 3 years at Makerere, I used to be the only woman among men. So I had got used to it. But the difference with Parliament was that I was very young. In fact, when the resident of Uganda called me to tell me I had been nominated, when I walked in, he said, "Ma, you are not this young. Let me ask the governor." And he said, "Yeah, that's the one." I was in with people who were old enough to be my fathers. like Nadiope. My friend Nancy, his daughter, was at Makerere with me. Obwango, Magezi, they were really grown up.
How old were you then?
I was 26. So in a way, I was a youth.
Yeah, you are. Seriously.
I was a youth. And I remember when I made my first maiden speech, Nadiope came and put his hand around me, said, "My daughter, you spoke like a man." And I said, "Like a woman." And he said, No. You've left the women far away there. You won't represent them here. And that's the challenge that woke me up, that there are issues that are actually feminine, which we must fight for. And I began to look for women. I told Sarah, and so we didn't, although we were on opposite sides, we were still friends. And she said, "I'll take you to Uganda Council of Women and you find out where the women are." Because I asked her, now, where can I find the women I'm supposed to represent? And she said, "I'll take you where they are." So she took me to Uganda Council of Women, and they had just had a conference, which they called the Status of Women, and passed 14 resolutions, which they wanted the public and the government to take up, things on taxation, on employment of women, bride price, inheritance, and so on. Yeah. When I was nominated, I had just got a scholarship to go to USA to do a MA in education. And in fact, I nearly refused to take up the Legislative Council because I had fought for that scholarship and I very much wanted to have my MA. And because when I was appointed, when I did education, I got a first-class diploma. And they put me in Makerere College School as a part-time lecturer and a teacher in Makerere College School. And I got interested in teacher education. I saw how very few Africans were in teacher education. And I wanted to do it. So I wanted to do an MA. And I told this resident, I've got my scholarship. I'm going to USA in September. And this was September next year. And he said, "Let me ask that." And the governor said, "No, you get into Parliament. When it comes and you still want to go, you can go." So come September 61, I left Legico and went to be a student in America. So that's the time Kabakayeka formed. But I had already joined the UPC, so I was in UPC Uganda. I would not have got into Kabakayeka. But almost everybody I knew and my relatives, my friends were Kabakayeka.
So you came back after how many years? After 2 years?
No, after 1 year, 1.5 years. Actually, one academic year. Because when
So who replaced you in the Legico now?
It was Makumbi. Eseza Makumbi. Eseza Makumbi replaced me. In fact, for the record, I was still a member of Legico when I left. Because Obote told me, "Don't tell the governor you have gone, because we want to find somebody we can put in your place. We will tell you when." And they told me around October. So in November, I sent in my resignation. And Eseza Makumbi took over. When I went to USA, I wanted to finish my MA and be back here by independence time. So I used to take Sabbath school, and I used to take many hours to get the qualification, to fulfill my... So I came back just about a week before independence in 1962. And I was there to see the Union Jack go down, and ours go up.
So this here you are, a person who had been a high-profile politician. So did you now sit in the periphery with the people you were given high?
No, when I came back, I knew, they were giving out invitation cards for various occasions. Big Kechiria was the man who was in at that time. So at that time, Miria Obote was a friend of mine, Miria Kalule. When I came back, I had no car. When Miria came to see me, I told her, give me a lift. I want to go and see Big Kechiria and ask for independence cards. So I got there with Miria. And I didn't know they were actually following her up or looking out for her. So Bike was quite excited. He gave me a card to this. I got VIP cards to all the occasions. And he invited me to the bar. Said, oh, you come and meet the members since you've come back. He told me later his interest was that I had Miriam. He wanted his friend Milton, who actually wanted to meet this girl, to meet her. So we went with her to the bar, and he sent a note down. There used to be a bar down up in Parliament.
Yes.
And they told me, oh, we have a party tonight. Why don't you come to them? So I started moving among them.
Yeah. So here is a very intelligent woman at that time, very, very beautiful woman at that time. What stopped Obote from getting attracted to you instead of getting attracted to Miria? I believe automatically he would have.
I wasn't, I wouldn't know what attracted me to Obote, but I wasn't attracted to him either. By the time I was in Legislative Council, I had my own boyfriend who was even outside the country at that time.
Okay.
And I probably would not have looked at him. But anyway, that was his interest. He had accidentally met her somewhere and had told his friend, when I meet that girl and find her, I'll get married. So for him, it was love at first sight. In fact, on Independence Day, I was with Miria at the stadium. We went together. Yeah.
So this was not at the stadium, but at Kololo Airstrip.
At Kololo Airstrip.
Okay, that's right, yeah. So then, after that, you didn't go back into politics, or you went to education teaching?
I decided to stay in my profession, but I was interested in politics. For example, I would drive from Gayaza to come and sit in the gallery to hear a debate. Like when they were debating to change from British Crown having a governor to having a president. I was in Parliament most of those debates, just to hear. Yeah.
So then you got married in 1963 and...
I didn't get married in 63. I got married in 65.
Your husband was an activist already?
My husband was on the other side. He was a Kabakayeka. And he was in Uganda government. I knew him, but he wasn't even my boyfriend at the time. When I came back, I went to Gayaza as a deputy head of the school. But then I saw an advert for faculty of education for lecturer in subjects that I had done.
Okay.
And I applied. And I got the slot. So 64, I moved from Gayaza to Makerere, Faculty of Education.
But still then you continued, your interest in...
I continued. There was nothing that stopped me from being interested in politics. And in fact, at that time, in UPC, we had a very lively movement, youth movement. We were discussing youth in youth groups, you ask Kintu Masoke, he would tell you. We used to have conferences. I remember one in Mbarara, another one in Fort Portal, another one in Mbale. And every year we would choose our leadership. Yeah.
So then, of course, you met your husband in 1965 and you got married?
My husband I had met before. And I can't, with him, I can't tell you this is the time we started dating. Because I knew him, I knew his cousins, I knew his parents. We used to move in parties, in what, together, you would dance together, you would do what. And I never noticed that he was really interested in me until very, very much later. Particularly, probably, it became more pronounced when I came to Makerere, because at Gayaza, I had his cousin. So whenever he came to visit, I would think he's come to see his cousin. And whenever he took us out, either to a film or what, we would go in a group. And I thought it was because of his cousin. It's when I moved to Makerere and I had a flat of my own, and he kept coming to see me. Yeah.
Yeah. So
then I got married in 65, August.
Okay, that was towards the crisis. But you didn't go back to Parliament at that, you didn't?
I had not gone back to Parliament at that time. 65, I was lecturing at Makerere, then 67, because of the 66 crisis. Or maybe I better say something about 66 crisis.
That's exactly what I was leading to.
Yeah.
Tell me from, your experience. How would you describe? What would you like people to know about the 66 crisis? As somebody who was there.
The 66 crisis, to me, I date it from the 1964 UPC conference in Gulu. That's when UPC started having about 2 groups. And I think you can ask the active UPCs then what these groups were. There was the Wingira group, there was the Kakonge group. And rivalry between this group, between that group. Then comes the Ocheng motion. Then came the abrogation of the Constitution. At that time, I was in Mulago, the day when Obote announced he had abrogated the Constitution. I was in Mulago Hospital having just had my first baby. And I was listening for, because it was broadcast live. I listened. I didn't hear point of order. I didn't hear point of motion. I didn't hear anybody opposing. And this man stands there and talks eloquently as he used to speak for over an hour. And then he says, I have abrogated the Constitution. He said, but I know you people are interested in the Constitution. So when you go out, you'll find a Constitution in your pigeonhole. And that's why it gets that name, Pigeonhole Constitution. And they had to pass it before they saw it. And that evening, Daudi Ocheng comes to see my new baby. Daudi Ocheng was a friend of my late husband. And I knew him, but he was particularly a friend of my late husband. So when he came, I said, Daudi, why didn't I hear anybody saying anything? And you people, and Daudi told me, Joyce, we got the shock of our lives today. Because as we came in, the parliament was surrounded by the army. As we came in, we were searched under gunpoint. We went in, so we were all sort of mortified and terrified. and they didn't know what to do. So I remember Daudi Ochieng taking hold of my baby girl and looking at her and said, "What a beautiful thing you have brought into this country. But you and I have got a big problem, because we must bring Uganda back and give it to these people as beautiful as we found it." Because he said, "Look at me, I'm Choli, most of my friends are Uganda. But now we come and sit here and disturb this country. We must put it back." So that remark I remember very clear. So anyway, that was the beginning of 66. Yeah.
So then, of course, the actual storming of the Rubiri.
The storming of the Rubiri, that touches me personally, because my late husband was Attorney General in the Kabaka's government. During that crisis, I was either that big with a baby, or I had just produced a baby, because I had my baby on the 7th. This was on the 7th of April. And my late husband had been asked by Uganda government to go to UK and at least do something, say something about what was happening in Uganda, because the government had sat on the information. Nothing was getting outside. And we had just become independent. We were still thinking it's so important for the outside world to know what is happening here. So he was to leave and go to UK. And the day he was supposed to leave, that was in April, around April 28th, it was rumored they were going to arrest him. So that day I told him, "I'm moving with you wherever you are going, because I want to see you being arrested." But anyway, in the end, they decided that he goes. The treasurer had refused to buy a ticket. I think because he was wavering between Uganda government and the central government. So they decide that he goes to Mukono and get money from Sekibobo and go to Nairobi and buy a ticket, because you could still use Uganda money in Nairobi. So then I saw CIDs coming here in this very house, coming here. "Where is Mpanga?" And I said, "He's in the palace." They came back again. "When is he coming back?" I said, "I don't know exactly, but he's in the palace." But I knew he was on his way to UK. Of course, I wasn't going to give him up. And I knew they were CIDs. Anyway, they come back late at night. And I said, "He hasn't come back." And they asked me, "Is this normal?" I said, "Anyway, ever since I got married to him, I know he's a politician. I don't ask him, 'When will you come back?' But I'm sure he will come back, because he doesn't sleep there." So they left. Early morning Sunday, it was a Sunday, they came. But I knew by that time he had probably crossed the border. And I said, "Well, he came back, but he went back to the palace very early." And he goes. So he was in UK when the crisis of 24th May came.
And you are here.
And I was here. My father was the Mukulu wa Rubiri, Mengo. So in the evening this is the evening before the actual storming of the palace. I had gone to commissariat with my neighbor. Then I see a Land Rover, and I knew it was a palace Land Rover. And Land Rovers used to frighten the villagers. I said, "The Land Rover? Ateze war?" don't go back. I said, no, I know it. So I came here and I found my father had come to see me. Why? Because after about 11, we had been told the village is surrounded by soldiers and so on. This was the previous day. And there was kind of skirmishes in Katwe. I had a brother who was in Makerere College School, and he used to live with my parents in Makindi. So I drove to Makerere College School and told him, if my father doesn't come for you, or I don't come for you, don't walk home.
Yeah.
Ask the headmaster to put you up. So at about 4, when I heard there was nothing much, I decided to go drive him from Makerere College School to his mother. And we drive behind the Katwe, and these soldiers are beating people with gun butts. They were stopping people who were just walking, ordinary people. Anyway, we came back. So when my father went back in the evening to check on his wife, he found John there, and he was told I had taken him. And he was worried, did I get home?
Yes.
So he came to check on me. And it's strange because I never sat with my father on the same chair. But when I came in, he was sitting on a big... I came and sat with him. He said, Omanyi, tonight we are being attacked. This being civil war, news were moving from this side to the other side. Normally my father would not have stayed in the palace because married people don't stay in the palace. But he told me he was going to stay there. Why? Said, oh, this is what we swear. Supposing they come to attack my Kabaka, and in the morning I come and tell him, Bakulike. No. I have to be there. So, I knew he had stayed in the palace. At about 3, you began to hear gunshots. Really, I was worried. Then at about 10 in the morning, we walked with girls and boys who were there, and we walked to Ruvaga on foot. We wanted to see what was happening in the palace, and there you could actually see the gunshots across. But a father came out and told us, don't come, stand here. You know those stray bullets can find you here and kill you, so don't come back. So we walked back and came and sat just in wait. For me, I was just sitting to wait to hear the fate of my father. In the evening, I had an aunt at the top of the hill. I said, let me walk there. Maybe she has better news. I went to Mrs. Kamani. She had no news. So I said, I'm sure my father is going to die there. Anyway, he was shot in the leg. When they came to collect people to take them to Luzira, the people who were alive, he said, don't take anybody wounded. So he stayed there even for the next night. He died and decided I must go into exile.
So you went to UK.
So I went to UK.
Did you interact with the Kabaka then when you were in England?
Of course, that would have been unnatural.
What was his life in England? What was he like?
He was living in a flat in Bermondsey, not the best part of London. But he was okay. He had Katende and he had another boy helping him. And he would have enough food. And we used to go and see him. But we used as a community to celebrate his birthday just as we would celebrate it this way. And I think that heartened him because we never abandoned him.
Yeah, there is one of the controversial incidents is that he was poisoned by a woman who had been sent to him.
Yeah, that we believed, and we still believe. Before that woman came, somebody wrote to us. They have prepared to send a girl and gave us her name as Tatu Sekanya. What did Nkanje tell you about that? Her name is Tatu Sekanyo. Then in another letter, which they had posted from Nairobi, they said, we sent you a letter of warning. We are sending you now the photograph of that girl and the address where she stays. Katende had started working because he had a family and we had no money to give him. So he used to leave the Kabaka and go and work and come back later. When he comes back, he found there were 2 glasses. So he knew the Kabaka had had a guest during his absence. But of course it would have been rude of him to ask, who did you have? She just put away the glasses. Then somebody comes to take the Kabaka through the program of the official birthday on Saturday. And he goes. Then as Katende is washing up, a telephone rings. And the Kabaka never answered the telephone. Katende went to answer it, but found the Kabaka had fallen down there. But quickly, being a soldier, he first attended one. Said, who are you? I'm looking for my friend. So is she there? He said, she's not here, and put it back. Then attended to the Kabaka, and the Kabaka had gone actually. So he rings his doctor. His doctor was not there. Then he rings Mpanga. What do I do? Mpanga said, no, ring Richard Kagom because he's nearer. He will do something. Richard Kagom brings his own doctor. But by the time they got here, the Kabaka was dead. And then this girl stupidly makes a remark when she comes in the morning. At the time I rang, whoever answered the telephone was in such a hurry. Is that the time he died? Why was she interested? So you ask, why was she interested? But anyway, when news started going around, the boys were saying, we know that girl came with a mission. We know that girl came with a mission.
And
we are
she
going.
Disappeared?
Eh?
Did she disappear? That woman?
She didn't disappear right away because she thought nobody would know her. But then she came to the Rumbe. You know we have the Rumbe. She came to the Rumbe. I was there and what. Then she goes to her home and she rings me and says, Mchala Mpanga, abalenzi bagamba mbu nze nasse Kabaka, kakati baagala kunkuba. If you didn't, why do you worry? No. I'll go and throw myself down the train. I'll die. You tell my parents. And I said, don't make me responsible for your death. I'll tell your parents nothing because I don't know whatever you are going to do. From then, she didn't come back. But then a policeman she had befriended from Rosarite, that was the station next door, comes and tells my husband, if anything happens to that girl, it's you. Because blah, 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 blah. Make a statement. So he said, no, I'm a British trained lawyer. You can't threaten me like that. I'll make a statement when you officially ask me and in the presence of my lawyer. Anyway, they didn't get to him until very much later. And what happened? This girl is taken by Engena, who was the special, what did they call their special force then?
The GSU.
Who was the GSU in the High Commission? Engena. Ngena takes her. They give her money. She goes to France to disappear while we are mourning so that people won't frighten her. She eventually came back. And there was a lull because everybody had said she died of alcoholic poisoning and so on. But the close people, like Mpanga, like what said no. If he was to die of alcoholic poisoning, it should have been in Mengo, where he had so much money. There was a lot of booze for anybody. And here, he didn't have money, and he was drinking white wine. But anyway, that's why we believe he was poisoned.
Thank you very much, Honorable Joyce Mpanga. Thanks.